The thing we thought was very exciting about this game was that it was a blank slate. We really had to start from scratch. That's also the challenge, obviously, at the same time, but that's what's exciting about it. The beginning is definitely the slowest part, right? You start from scratch, you try to figure out your tone, your instruments, your melodies.
When we created Turnham, we wanted to design and create a vast, explorable world. Players will quickly realize that nothing ever really dies in this island. No soul can leave the body. It is the magical resource that grants the power of immortality, and it is called Aza.
Every inch of the land of Eternum feels alive and brimming with possibility. But a world cannot exist in a vacuum. To truly make a game sing, you need to fill it with sound. Every strike of an axe against a tree, every scrape of sword against steel, every roar from a terrifying beast. New World's audio director Jean-Edouard Miclot knew that Eternum needed to have a soundtrack that could be both grand and intimate. It needed to feel epic, but also believable. For inspiration, the team looked to one of the most successful fantasy franchises of all time, Game of Thrones. With this show, Ramin Djawadi created some of the most iconic and evocative themes in television history. Naturally, he would be the perfect fit to bring the sounds of Eternum to life. Ramin teamed up with Brandon Campbell, who he had worked with on Game of Thrones and Westworld, to start figuring out the sound of the game.
So we started the conversation with them long before we had a game. Everything changed when Ramin and Brandon joined the team. Something really big was starting to happen.
Patrick Gilmore actually reached out and just pitched a game to us, actually. He said, look, there's this game, it's a huge world, and he just kind of started describing it to us and immediately caught our attention, and we said, oh my God, this sounds amazing. The thing we thought was very exciting about this game was that it was a blank slate. We really had to start from scratch. That's also the challenge, obviously, at the same time, but that's what's exciting about it.
Getting something off the ground for the first time is also kind of frightening and challenging at times.
The beginning is definitely the slowest part, right? You start from scratch, you try to figure out your tone, your instruments, your melodies.
For a game like New World, we were never writing to pictures, so we just got to write 2, 3, 4, 5-minute pieces of music without worrying about hitting specific sync points. So it gives you a lot of freedom musically. You have to stay within a certain emotion or vibe or something. But it gives you a lot of freedom to just write nice pieces of music. And because there's so much more music and the world's so much more vast and players play, a feature film's 2 hours, gameplay's gonna be thousands of hours for this. Use a lot more instruments and there'll still be a lot more cohesion because there's so much more music.
Games like New World aren't built in a day, and in these early stages, the composers had very little to guide them on their path to creating an appropriate score. To help spark their imagination, Amazon Games provided the duo with early concept art and designs for inspiration.
At first, there was not much, which actually was kind of fun. I mean, it's that thing where you start with so little, and then it's like, how do you try to narrow it down? So. And then we were asking for give us anything that you have at this point. So it literally started with just sometimes the costumes or just some landscape design.
We used a lot. We used a lot. Obviously we used the orchestra quite a bit, and we used traditional choir quite a bit, but we used solo singers and we used solo instruments, mandolin to fiddle to accordion to ethnic woodwinds to anything we could think of it. We were trying to just really get wide, and then we used a whole bunch of different types of percussion. And
it was a dream job in a way for a composer, because we could just look for any instrument and thought, we haven't used this instrument yet.
Steel drums. We used steel drums.
Could this possibly work? And we're like, it does work. Let's put it in. And so we just nerded out and we just had fun with it.
Yeah, the one that's used most often in the game was that big drum that I found in New Mexico. Well, the biggest thing about it was just big. We kind of like big, deep drums, but it's beautiful. Someone, I don't know how long these take to make, but it's a beautiful piece of craftsmanship. They take out a big tree, they cut and they hollow out, and then they stretch over animal skin over both sides of it to It's got a beautiful tone, and I loved watching some of the musicians in Taos play it, and I just thought it was just a beautiful sound that would get a lot of mileage out in the game. We used quite a bit of synthesizers on the game as well. We use synthesizer besides from an arrangement standpoint also because you can create kind of sounds that acoustic instruments can't play without kind of some type of manipulation. So you play something that you listen to and you're like, I'm not exactly sure what that is. It kind of sounds maybe like a flute, but it's also not a flute. And so you can kind of create little otherworldly sounds with synthesizers, which is great for something like New World because it's rooted in the real world, but it's a fictional land. So we tried to have some kind of otherworldly sounds in there.
Yeah, and I think just as we were looking for as many different instruments as possible to have just a versatile score, we felt that synthesizers are just as much part of the palette that we're allowed to use because they're another great addition to add more color to these tracks.
Beyond the score, it takes hundreds, if not thousands, of ambient sounds to create a world that feels alive. From the rustling of tree branches in the wind to the sound of a spear striking a shield, a huge library of sound effects was required to give Eternum the level of detail it deserved. Through music, languages, and sound effects, the sound team has designed a world that feels real and tangible, no matter what activities the player is participating in. This is thanks not only to the almost boundless creativity of the talent involved, but their enduring spirit of collaboration.
This was the first, even though not release date-wise, but starting date-wise, it's the first time I got to collaborate with Ramin as a co-composer. And so dynamically, our relationship was just a little bit different than it had been previously. And getting to work on melodies and themes and music with him was really kind of a special experience for me. And, I'm really proud of the music we came up with for this game. It will always have a very kind of special place in my heart.
We also recorded the Prague Orchestra a few times because we can't fake live performance. Musicians add their own layers of interpretation, and it just makes everything more real and organic. Collaborating with them was a dream come true for me, but now might be the best time for you to judge it by yourself. Go listen to the soundtrack or come join us in the game and tell us what you think. See you in Eternum.